What is going on, YouTube people? Today, another edition of the weekly sports card market update. And we are just about 31 days away from the National at the time you all are viewing this. We are on the fast track now, under a month. Flipping Steve had his big giveaway this past week on Off-Centered. Speaking of Off-Centered, me, Dustin, and Steve will be live later today for Hobby Palooza, the all-weekend live extravaganza with content creators from across the sports card landscape. We will be participating in that. I forget exactly what time that is. I feel like I should know that, but it's around like 12, 1, or 2 o'clock. Somewhere around that lunchtime hour, we will be live. I'm going to sneak out and hit my local Canton show today. I am walking through the aisles of that as this video is going live. Obviously, I've had a very busy week coming off Heroes Con, getting caught up on that content and back into the swing of things. And now my focus and attention shifts towards the National, where I will now begin, with about a month to go, start building a battle plan for what I want to accomplish at that show transaction-wise. Now that I figured out my budget after Heroes Con, picking up the X-Men 1 Grail, and knocking out a bunch of stuff on that list. In national news, I did the video earlier this week where they formally announced their trade nights, 3 straight nights in a row, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, held at the venue. So if you are coming to town, you know that you have a guaranteed trade night on site. There's also that after-hour show that has popped up that runs even later than the trade nights. So even if you want to go to the formal trade nights, you can head over to that one after, in addition to attending those. More national stuff in a minute, as we got some CGC on-site grading pricing. SGC, as we know, is not grading on-site. CGC is the first one to actually publish what they are charging for on-site grading. And once again, it is very aggressive pricing. Now, we don't have PSA and Beckett's quite yet, but I'm sure that will be coming very, very soon. Before we dive too deep, we got to give a shout out to channel partner Comc.com, your home for buying and selling a literal boatload of trading cards. I got to get a shipment off to them. I have a small pile building on my desk for quite a while now. I need to get that together and get it out the door. I have just been lazy / too busy / sidetracked to put everything together, get it boxed up, and get it shipped out. I need to do that this week. If you're not taking advantage of their Fresh Pulls program and getting things over to them, inventory that is just laying around that you don't feel like dealing with, for me, that's basically anything under the probably $15 to $20 range. I just don't feel like dealing with plain white envelope. I would rather pay the extra fees and just have Comc deal with it. I am perfectly excited to leave money on the table to have them deal with that sort of nonsense. So if you're not using them, go check them out. Or even if you don't want to send them cards, just go look to see if they have something on platform. Remember, if you find a card listed by Comc on eBay, you could typically get it for quite a bit cheaper buying it directly on their site. Big story of the week was Topps Chrome. The pre-release for that dropped. The checklist was inflated by a good 30-some%. The prices were inflated by probably another good 30-some%. And it sat on the website for a good few days. I did that video on it, and about a day after that video, she sold out across the board. Now, if you want to get the tinfoil hat, mine's sitting behind me. It's not on. Did it actually sell out, or did they just say, we're good, and mark it out of stock, not to keep it in stock longer on the website, because that puts basically a floor on the product, because everyone knows, I could just go to Topps and get it for that price, so I'm not going to spend any more than that when I know what I could get it for on Topps' own site. I'm sure it'll go back up on release day, and I'm sure it'll be up on Fanatics as well. Now, one thing to keep in mind that I forgot about, when I was talking about this in the video, I was comparing it to release day pricing at the $150 and $350 a box. The pre-order pricing last year for Chrome was even cheaper. It was $300 for a jumbo and like $125 for a hobby. So don't be surprised. What we have found with these Topps pre-sales, typically, at least for the first couple of months, this is some of the best pricing that you could find. I would not be shocked if when Chrome jumbos and hobby come out on actual Topps.com, that on release day, that they are not more expensive than this. I wouldn't be surprised with jumbo. Maybe it's not that much, but I wouldn't be shocked if jumbos were $400 or a little over $400. And I wouldn't be surprised if hobby was $200 or a little over $200. Typically, the pre-order prices are the cheapest. Now, maybe that changes with this product. I don't know. It'll be very interesting to see what demand looks like once this hits on the full open market. I did see value boxes are up on Fanatics website for like $40. So if you want to go the retail route, even that's pretty $40 for blasters seems awful aggressive in my opinion. But what do I know? So did it actually sell out? Did they pull it? Who knows? But it is officially out of stock at the moment on Topps's website. Something we discussed about 2-3 weeks ago, eBay AutoPay. Well, we are seeing it first in action with PC sports cards. One of the bigger consigners on eBay. They posted this on their Instagram the other day. They are running an auction event with this turned on, running from July 1st through the 8th. And they are just straight up saying, working towards eliminating unpaid items, relisting, shilling, payout times, hassle, and stress. And this has been I'm going to say mildly controversial. It seems like most people are very much for this. There is a vocal minority that cries about getting funds in order for stuff and needing to get things situated. And listen, I could see the argument on the high end of things. On the normal everyday stuff, you know, a couple $1,000 and under, it really shouldn't be that big of a deal. You know you're bidding on the card. Guess what? Pre-move the money around and have it ready to go. Or have a credit card set up specifically for it. Have it charged to that credit card, and then just you have time to rearrange the funds and then just pay it off at the end of the month. There are plenty of workarounds for this. And I don't mean workarounds as in like cheating the system. I mean workarounds as in having the exact amount that you need the day that the auction ends. Now, if you're talking about bidding, there's that Steph Curry Chrome Refractor up that's in like the $60,000 range. Sure. Okay. I'll listen to that argument. You know, you got a 10K thing that you're bidding on. Sure. I will listen to that argument. That makes sense to me. But remember, this is up to the way that this sounds like it's going to work is it's up to the individual seller on a per item basis. So if they don't want to turn it on, they don't have to. So maybe on higher dollar items, a lot of people won't use it. I'm sure like Comc is not going to use it because they want to have you that they want you to have the ability to use Comc credit to pay for it. Now, I believe I saw on Dan the Cardman's video that Jeff Wilson asked Probstein about it, I guess, and I didn't see the original video to this. Texted Probstein about it, asked him if he was going to use this, and was basically didn't respond. I don't know if that's changed since then. That video was a few days old. So maybe all the consigners won't hop on board for this, but for at least stuff under a couple grand, this is a no-brainer. If I am sending my stuff to a consignor to sell, I want those items to sell and get me the money. I don't want it to be relisted 15 different times. This isn't that hard of a concept. And I think people are overrating how much this is going to negatively affect comps and stuff like that. If people want the card, they're still going to bid up the card. Is it going to have a slight negative effect? Sure, maybe. But I think we're talking about maybe 5 or 10% at most. This isn't going to be like 50% drops in prices. I don't think. Maybe I'll be wrong. If I'm wrong, there'll be some crazy content that comes out of it. What are you going to do? So, but this will be very intriguing to watch as this is really the first in mass. And we know exactly what items that they are that's going to be falling under this. Next, hinted at this at the beginning a little bit. CGC, they announced their on-site grading their prices for on-site grading at the National. Very aggressive pricing. This is very similar to last year. They were very aggressively priced last year, and I took advantage of this. I graded those Topps Now Elly De La Cruz cards that were super hot. I got them in hand like the week of the National, took them with me, did the on-site grading. They were Topps Now, so they grade super well, got the pristines, and I flipped those things for quite a hefty profit. It's actually one of my better flips of the year last year. Now, that was a perfect storm of those cards happening to come out like the week of the National and all that jazz. But if you want something slabbed up and you don't want to have to deal with shipping it back and forth, this is a pretty aggressive pricing. If you just have one card you want to get slabbed and you don't have a membership, it's $20 for end of show. And if you do have a membership, you do get the discounts. So you can get it for 18 or 16. If you have a bunch of cards you want to get done, $16 a card for, a premium member, 14 for elite, even 18 for the full freight for end of show. Pretty good. When you factor in what you're going to pay to ship an order there and get it shipped back, not terrible. I'm going to actually look around and see if there's some stuff that I want slabbed up for PC purposes. I just got those Favreau autos back. I wouldn't mind having those slabbed. I don't think they're going to grade super well. So maybe I would just go like an authentic and just get them slabbed up. I don't know. I'm gonna look around and see what I got to see if there's anything that I want slabbed in their holder. Listen, for resale value, it's not great. On the TCG side, it's a lot better, but on sports cards, it's not that spectacular. However, I still think they have the best holder out of the big four by a large margin. I love the way cards look in their holder. They are crystal clear, and this is extremely reasonable pricing for on-site grading. So if you are looking to get something slabbed, take advantage of this, because I'm sure PSA and Beckett will be much more expensive. And as we talked about earlier, SGC is not even doing on-site grading. Speaking of PSA, and I did not pull up a page for this or anything. We were talking about graders' notes and their new terms and conditions on cleaning yesterday. Something that a couple of different people brought this up in the comments, and it's not something that I thought about initially, but it's been bouncing around my head since then regarding graders' notes and how only the submitter can see them. Now, initially, one thing to keep in mind is the graders' notes are only going to be on higher end services. So you're looking at Express service and up, I believe. They haven't even formally announced it yet, but I believe what the chatter was is that it's going to be only on the higher tier services out the gate, and then maybe it'll trickle down to the lower end services. But since it's only through the submitter, I wonder how they're going to handle, I guess if you submit through a group submitter or through like Comc or something like that, you're just not going to be able to have access to your graders notes. And once again, that seems like a miss. I still have not seen a compelling case on how this is pro-consumer, having the graders notes hidden. It's pro-PSA, but I don't believe that it is pro-consumer to hide them. There's not a lot of arguments I think you can make that from a consumer standpoint, using your service and or interacting with your service, as in transacting in cards in your cases, that it is a pro to hide these. To me, it's just a con all the way across the board, unless you're trying to hide something. Now, from PSA's perspective, I can see why it's a pro for them to keep it hidden. So just an interesting thing there that was brought up in the comment section yesterday that I wanted to kind of take a swing at there with the whole group submitter angle of it, because that is not something that crossed my mind when I was initially talking about it yesterday. Last but not least, on the news segment, and this pretty much most of this stuff is things I have not covered this week just because of all the Heroes Con stuff. Fanatics Fest. We'll start the countdown for that. That one's coming up pretty quickly as well. 2 weeks after the National. They have posted a website. This is they have to have the site up, but the guest website now has pricing for people that are signing autographs, and you have a full list of guests. This is still getting updated. People are still getting added to this. Now, the big headliners. Jeter, if you hover over these, it shows you their autograph pricing. Jeter, not signing. Tom Brady, not signing. Kevin Durant, not signing. They are just there for panels. Also appears, at least as of right now, Gary V not signing. I'm sure that'll make the comment section angry. But a lot of other people are. I scrolled through these really quickly. I don't do a lot of athlete signings. In fact, I don't think I rarely do. I did a Reggie Jackson one in Atlantic City. That was to get something for a friend of the family that they wanted a ball signed. I don't remember what that cost, maybe like $125. For the most part, things seem fairly reasonable-ish, $100 to $200 to get something signed. I don't know if that's out of line or not. If someone does these all the time, feel free to fire away in the comments down below. The most expensive one that I saw at a quick glance seemed to be Peyton Manning. To get a card autographed by Peyton is $400. I feel like you could buy some really nice pack-pulled Peyton Manning autos for $400. I could be wrong. Now, there's the experience of meeting the athlete for the, 30 seconds to a minute that you're in front of them there. And for some people, that is 100% worth it. I get it. No hate. If that's what you're paying for, is that brief interaction to be able to meet them, say, thank you for bringing a title to the city or whatever it is that you want to say to them, and that quick little interaction that you get. For some people, that is worth a good chunk of that change in the autograph as a side bonus. But he was by far and away the most expensive. Eli clocking in for cards at $179, and that seems to be where most people were at. Hogan was a little pricey as well, but Cody Rhodes here, cards $150, photo op $129. What was the Manning photo op? $400. I know I've looked at like TriStar pricing for the National last year. I've not looked this year. Like Joe Montana used to be astronomically expensive. I think Carmelo was a little pricey. What's he looking at for a card? $270 for a card. Some of these have rookie cards and non-rookie cards as two separate price, or they all have listed as two separate prices. Most of them appear to be the same. I think Hogan was like $100 difference. AI seemed reasonable-ish at $170. But once again, for a lot of these, I feel like you could just buy a pack-pulled card for a lot cheaper. Here's Josh Hart, $100. Jalen Brunson, $170. You could probably buy a Jalen Brunson rookie pack pulled on card auto for $170. I would have to imagine. Some other, you got Jerry Rice, Barry Sanders, a lot of Jalen Rose, but there's no pricing for his autos, so I don't know if maybe he's not signing. T-Mac, and then a bunch of wrestling stars. If you're big in the wrestling, a lot of people are going to be at this thing from the WWE. So, Jim Kelly, I don't know how often he signs. Thurman Thomas, if you're a Bills fan, along with Kelly. Vinny Testaverde. I actually got Vinny Testaverde's autograph when he was the Browns quarterback at Valley View in Brookfield, Ohio. I remember waiting in line to have him sign. I think I had like a Pro Set card sign. I still have that laying around somewhere in a screw. Well, it used to be in a screw down holder. I think I finally took it out of that. But I remember meeting him and have that signed in Valley View's sporting goods department way back in the day. So that list is up. If you're planning on attending or thinking about attending and you want to look over some pricing on people, like I said, I don't do this very often. So if you're up on pricing and you take a look at this and something seems way off, feel free to fire away in the comments down below. Let's transition over to some charts and graphs here. Market Mover's link in the description down below if you want to play around with your own charts and graphs. You can get a couple weeks for free and 25% off for life if you want to check it out. First off, we had the NBA Finals this past week. Finish up. Celtics won. Kind of heading that direction all along. Mavs just could not hang with that team. Celtics were an absolute monster. Here we have Tatum, Silver Prism, Brown, Silver Prism, Tatum, Green Prism, and Brown Green Prism. As we've kind of discussed throughout the playoffs, Tatum, not much of a bump at all on some of his stuff. His Green Prism is actually flat over the last 90 days, sitting at 1.7K. It did bounce up a little bit during the playoffs, but went right back down again. Silver Prism stayed flat. We're looking at up 13%. So you made no money there if you bought that to flip. Jaylen Brown was the biggest winner of the NBA playoffs. His Silver Prism is up 60%. His Green Prism is up 82%. And to me, that price still seems very reasonable. He's a very good player. You could argue the best player on that team. And his population counts are astronomically lower because of being from that 2016 era. His PSA 10 silver is only pop 279. Tatum's in 2017 is almost 900. So basically a third of the population report and way cheaper of a price on card. The green, Brown's green PSA 10 is only pop 70. Tatum's is 190. So more than double. And the card is more than double in price. So just kind of interesting there. I know Brown on paper does not have the star value of Tatum, but on the court, they are much closer together than their card prices dictate, especially when you factor in the population counts. I should mention, in the basketball side of world, we've had some heavy losses the last couple of weeks, losing West and Walton very close together. I didn't pull any stuff for them. A lot of those old vintage rookies just don't sell frequently enough. And then the lower grades, presentation matters a ton. But obviously their market's heated way up. And then in the baseball side of things, we obviously lost Willie Mays this week, arguably the greatest baseball player of all time. I'm sure there's some hot take debates on that. But absolute legend, absolute monster of a player. His stuff was also super hot this week. I didn't pull any charts and graphs for that either. Once again, his 51 Bowman, the prices on that are so crazy already. And in the lower grade, it's just hard to see because the presentation is going to matter so much on those lower grade vintage cards on how they sell. And on the upper end, they just don't transact enough. But a lot of other Willie Mays stuff was flying autos and things like that. I did see a lot of stories floating around out there about be very, very careful with Mays autos, that there are a lot of fakes out there. So make sure if you are FOMOing into a Willie Mays auto that you are doing your due diligence before you pull the trigger on something. So just kind of keep that in mind. Also in basketball, Luka, the opposite side of the coin. This one's also kind of interesting. This is his Silver Prism PSA 10. This thing, you can see during the playoff run, actually shot way up. This thing got all the way back up to 2K for a hot minute after basically sitting around. This was pretty much a $1,200 card all season long, give or take 10%. It would go up a little bit, it would go down a little bit, but it basically stayed right at $1,200. Now, the fascinating thing here is it had the big run up, and then obviously against the Celtics, things fell apart quickly. He did not exit very well, complained, basically quit in the one game, fouled out. The whole thing was very messy. That being said, he led his team to the NBA Finals, went through a brutal Western Conference, and that team should be very good again next year. It might actually be even better, assuming Derek Lively develops a little bit more. Him and Kyrie figure things out a little bit more. They make some other little tweaks in the offseason. They should be another conference final contender come next year. And I ran this chart back 365 days. This is the cheapest his card has been in a year. It's down 26%. He's currently at under $1,000 and still trending down. Last sale, $991. I rolled across here, and I believe that is the cheapest sale in the entire year. So if you're a Luka believer, keep a close eye on this. Maybe it keeps crashing down. I don't know. But it's so crazy how the card market works. It's just so nonsensical. The guy, best player on his team, leads his team to the NBA Finals, and his card is cheaper now than it's ever been the entire year. It's just wild stuff. I mean, on just as nonsensical as the Tatum stuff is, he arguably is the best player on the team, had an amazing season. He just is not like the same stature of like a Luka from that standpoint. He is much more, I'm just willing to fit in with everybody else. And his card prices barely go up at all when he actually wins an NBA championship. These are just all things to file away. When you see in like Facebook groups of like, when so-and-so wins a ring, his prices are going to go to the moon and I'm going to make a fortune. That's not always the case. I mean, someone like Brown, different story. His stuff was very cheap to begin with. We talk about this all the time. It's what is already baked in. And rings are baked in the Luka. A lot of rings. And he just whiffed at an opportunity to get one. Now, in my opinion, Luka's probably going to be a favorite for the MVP next year, most likely. So I don't know. If you want Lucas stuff, keep an eye on things. Maybe an opportunity presents itself if you've been looking to buy some Luka cards here in the short term. Hockey. That is right. Hockey. One Mr. Connor McDavid. I believe game 7 is tonight. They were down 3-0 and have battled all the way back. Now, his PSA 10 Young Guns really hasn't moved much at all. This is over the last 90 days. Sitting flat at basically 10% up. Once again, 10%, there's their margin of error in there. It has started to creep back up over the last week or so. I'm guessing some of that has to do with the run that he's on. The PSA 9 is down about 8%, and the BGS 9.5 is up about 25%. That one varies a lot because the subgrades will kind of swing a price point a little bit. But you do see the PSA 10 and the BGS 9.5 over the last week definitely creeping up. If they can complete this comeback, I don't know if this stuff's going to go absolutely crazy or not, but it seems like the thing that the hockey world has been waiting for. Now, I am not a hockey guy at all when it comes to cards. It's just never been my thing. I'm out of my depths here, so I could be completely wrong. Anyone that's a hockey person in the comments, feel free to fire away down below. If McDavid pulls this off, is this going to shoot him into absolute GOAT status, pulling off a 3-0 deficit? Let me know. Baseball. One Mr. Gunnar Henderson, having an amazing season, and his card prices are reflecting it. He's been if you drafted him in fantasy, you probably got him in the 2nd or 3rd round. You are just loving life. His first Bowman PSA 10, this is just the base auto, up 126% over the last 90 days, and 90 days takes us to the very end of March, right before the season started. That card's up 126%. The PSA 9 up 100% to $440. Just huge gains on his stuff as he continues to just absolutely crush the baseball. And he's just in his 2nd year and looking absolutely amazing. On the flip side, and this kind of plays in the Topps Chrome that we were talking about earlier, a lot of the kids that are leading the pack for Topps Chrome have not had the best of years, and their first Bowman autos reflect that. This is going back to, I ran this one back to the beginning of the year so you could see the crazy jumps in spring training some of these cards went on. Churio down 56%. Wyatt Langford down 57%. His PSA 10 auto down to around $300. A little over $300. Now, I will say, I noticed, because I have Langford on an NFBC team, he's actually been picking it up quite a bit since coming back from injury. I think he hit another home run on Saturday, but he seems to be playing a lot better as we kind of head in the summer here. So I wonder if his stuff could potentially go on a little bit of run if he heats way up. Now, Ellie is up 22%. He's had a weird season. I really don't know what to make of Ellie De La Cruz. He strikes out a boatload. His batting average is His speed is amazing, and his power has been a little all over the place this year. But his stuff is up 22%. Jackson Holiday down 50% from the beginning of the year. And that probably, these aren't even their all-time highs that I'm running this from. If you would have went mid-March, early March, this stuff was even more inflated, especially Wyatt Langford. But he's down about 50% with no signs of coming up. Out of the 3, Wyatt is the most intriguing to me. His population counts are a lot higher, but he does seem to be turning it on a little bit. Now, I'm not chasing any of these guys. Not really my style. I did hit the Langford SP out of my top Series 2 box. I'm still debating if I'm going to send that in for grading or not. I just haven't had time to really look it over. I got a pile of cards to go to PSA. I'm just trying to build up to the 10. I might actually wait to see if they run some crazy special for the National. But I did not run Jackson Merrill. He has also been playing quite well the last few weeks, in addition to Langford. Last but not least, really quickly, a little bit of football. Trevor Lawrence signed a contract extension for an absolutely boatload of money. I am not a big Trevor Lawrence believer at all. His cards did get a little bump up. PSA 9 silver is up about 26%, and the Optic Hollow has been trending up slightly. It's up about 13%. The reason with a 9 on the silver, PSA 10s on the Lawrence are extremely rare. I think there's only 100 on the pop report. There's a known issue with that card. So that's why I went with the 9. And then the Optic Hollow and the PSA 10 as well. So slight bump ups there. Some of that just could be we're trending towards football season. Some of it could have been the contract extension. I'm just not a Trevor Lawrence believer. He didn't show me anything at all last year. So we'll see what happens this upcoming year. But we are beginning to head into the heyday of football. The National tends to be a feeding frenzy around quarterbacks and football in general. We'll see if that holds true again this year. We'll find out in just almost basically exactly a month. So that's all I got for you, boys and girls. We will catch you on the next one. Peace.